Welcome to the Business Brains and the Bottom Line podcast. I am your host, Paul D'Allegro, and my guest today is John Czapko, the CEO and founder of CyberSecure. Welcome to the show, John.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited about this topic because I'm in technology, and what's interesting about your background, you sell cyber insurance, generally speaking. I'll let you get into that in a minute, but you have a strong technology background, which insurance and technology usually don't go together. So tell us a little bit about your background before we started getting into cyber insurance.
Yeah, so I do have a pretty wild background, and those two don't normally mix. I spent 26 years in the IT industry. I actually started my career at Microsoft, demoing Microsoft Encarta and Magic School Bus at CompUSA and Computer City back when we sold software in a box. And it was before Windows 95 even launched. Then I started on the Win 95 launch team, spent a number of years at Microsoft, then went over to Oracle when they were a database company. And then throughout my career, spent time at HP, Dell, did a whole bunch of different things, taught at the University of Houston, and then went over to Lockheed Martin, where we took things that we did for various three-letter organizations and commercialized them into the commercial marketplace from a cybersecurity perspective. And that's really where I cut my teeth in the cyber security space. And then a number of years ago, I went to KPMG, finished my career at KPMG, where I helped to lead a cyber practice across North America, and then got into the commercial insurance industry about a little over 4 years ago.
Okay.
And what's interesting about that is, I'm one of the few people that can have that IT conversation and then pivot and have the risk conversation. And that's really the value proposition that I bring, is be able to have, clarity where there's chaos or confusion from an IT perspective and an insurance perspective. So
let me get this straight. So you went into insurance first. You didn't get into cyber insurance, correct?
Right. So I've got a commercial insurance business that I run and operate. And then I have a mentor that said, wait, you've got to niche down and you've got to be focused on cyber insurance. That's your niche. That's your calling. That's what you're really good at. You can have that conversation with people and help bring that clarity where there's a lot of confusion in the marketplace. So I run a commercial insurance industry agency, and then I also have a cyber insurance business that I run. That they go hand in hand. They work in tandem together.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It's a natural fit for you. So, because I see, and I'll tee this up for you, we see a lot of our customers that can't get insurance because they're not compliant, and they've got to jump through all these hoops, multi-factor authenticate, to list a number of things. So we'll start out. Why do you think people, go out and get cyber insurance? We'll start at the basic level here. And what are the needs there? What do you think?
It's interesting. I think every business is a digital business, right? Whether you're an HVAC contractor or a painting company, or you're a professional services company, every business is a digital business. And, try doing payroll the old fashioned way, right? We all rely on some digital aspect of our business. So everybody relies on some sort of digital thing, whether we go to a restaurant now and we try to pay with our credit card, they bring the little, POS thing to the table and you pay that way, right? We don't do it manually anymore. There's no credit card terminal at the front desk. So every business is digital. And I think that people have to realize that whatever size they are, whether they're a small business, a mid-sized business, a mid-market business, or a large business, they're all under attack from these cyber criminals every day. And small businesses are under attack as much as a big business is. And in many instances, they're even more targets because they're easier to attack.
Sure.
They don't have the infrastructure. They don't have the IT department. They don't have the financial means to support, what a big company does. So it's a fascinating conversation. So every customer that I talk to, we always talk about cyber insurance, whether it's on just the standard commercial side or whether it's the cyber side. And it's a fascinating conversation to have today. Security reduces the risk that businesses have, but insurance funds the recovery is what I like to tell people. So they need to look at this from their core standard risk management perspective.
Yeah. So from that standpoint, John, how do you go about, someone calls you and says, I want cyber insurance. Is there a certain criteria that you have, like you have to have A, B, C, D, E, and F in place or I won't insure you? How does that work?
Yeah, there are some controls that companies need to have in place. They need to have things like multi-factor authentication. They need to have backups and recovery. They need to have a disaster recovery strategy. They need to have some core blocking and tackling and some controls that they need to have in place. And they need to be able to leverage companies like yourselves to be able to put those things in place. So, my strategy goes hand in hand with companies like you to be able to put those things in place. So there is some controls and some things that need to be put in place that they need to have from a security checkpoint checklist type conversation as well.
Yeah. And would you say most cyber insurance companies are pretty similar in those requirements, or is there a wide range of requirements? What do you think?
There's not a lot of there's standardization as to what you need to have from a basic blocking and tackling perspective. And then there's some variability within what each company looks for. But there is some standardization within, I need to have multi-factor authentication in place. I need to be able to have the certain controls in place. So there is a lot of standardization from that perspective. But from an underwriting perspective, each company's kind of unique in the way they go about underwriting those different risks.
We've both been in the industry long enough. I can remember like 15 years ago, call it. Cybersecurity was kind of we don't really need it.
Right.
But now everyone we talk to, without exception, every company, that's at top of mind for them right now.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's amazing. And it's interesting because it doesn't matter what size you are. Everybody has a cyber strategy, and they need to make sure that they leverage insurance as a backstop. I remember a mentor of mine telling me a long time ago, these cyber criminals need to be right one time to get into your business, and we need to be right all the time, right? We're constantly playing defense, and they need to be right once just to hack into your business. And that's kind of a scary proposition, no matter what size you are. So,
you think about it, these guys are sitting in an office somewhere or a cellar somewhere, right? And you're right. They're bombarding people all day.
Right.
All they need is one, right? I mean, you're exactly right.
Right. And they look for the low hanging fruit, right? They look for the least common denominator, and that's what they go after. And now with AI and generative AI, they can launch these attacks at scale. Whereas before it used to be, I'm going to come after you. I'm going to come after you. It was onesie twosies. Now they can come after things at scale, which is even scarier for a lot of companies or industries or markets or segments. And it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy time right now.
Yeah. So what are the most common cyber incidents that you see that are going to put people out of business?
It really comes down to a few different things. Downtime is a huge issue. Ransomware is a big issue. Social engineering is a big issue. And we see a lot more third-party kind of vendor relationship type things are important right now. So we're seeing a lot of kind of supply chain security type initiatives going on, even in smaller organizations. We're seeing a lot of supply chain initiatives. So ransomware, business email compromise is still a big issue. 60% of claims, 60 to 70%, depending on the study you see, are coming from business email compromise still.
Yeah, we see that. We see that too. And to dovetail onto that, the biggest critical factor is the human error. People clicking on links they shouldn't. And
huge. Yeah.
I don't know how you train, but all it takes is one click, one bad click, and
right. And it used to be easier, right? We used to be able to spot some of these bad emails where the email would come and it would be misspelled on the email naming convention. And again, with AI, they're getting better at those.
Yeah.
Those phishing emails, they're getting
Masking.
better and better at those, and it's getting tougher and tougher to discern a bad email from a good email. So the human element is still the biggest risk when it comes from a cyber perspective, even on the cyber insurance side. So that still becomes the mitigating factor when we look at a lot of cyber insurance claims.
Yeah. And I know that I'll give you, for it's our company, we have a security plan in place and we do training and, and they want us to report things. But I think one of the risks is people are embarrassed to say sometimes, oh man, I clicked on a link.
Right.
We've got to get away from that public shaming.
Yep.
We've got to get away from that and just say, hey man, it's going to happen. If something happens, let us know immediately.
Exactly. Right. And it's going to happen to the CEO, to the clerk, right? And it doesn't matter who clicks on that. It's going to happen. So that public shaming is not so good.
Yeah. So when let's start from the beginning. You meet with a company and they say, I'm interested in cyber insurance. What do you do then? I mean, you can't just say, okay, give me $1 million. I mean, what's the process to figure out, if they are compliant, and actually what does it cover?
Right. So a lot of times what we do is we start with a simple assessment, a checklist, and we go through, what do they have in place? What are some things that they have? What don't they have? A lot of insurance companies nowadays have assessments that are built into their application process. So they'll look at public facing domains. They'll look at different things. And I just went through this with a few companies last week where one company got declined for coverage because they had a lot of vulnerabilities and unpatched vulnerabilities on their web scan. So, we need to go fix those before they're going to get coverage. And that's okay, right? We've identified some vulnerabilities that they didn't necessarily know that they had. And there were some things that were handled by their MSP that they didn't even know they had. So we do some web scans, we do some different things from that perspective, and then we look at what they've got in place from a controls perspective to determine what level of coverages they need. And that becomes the science behind kind of the piece. There's people will start with $1 million in coverage generally, and we go up from there, and we need to look at what their risk tolerance is. And that becomes a really interesting conversation. Yeah. Not just saying, oh, you need $1 million, because if the average breach is, IBM's study came out and the average breach was $4 million. So if I position $1 million in coverage to a customer, that doesn't really
not going to be enough.
If there's a breach of $4 million, right? So, but do they need $4 million, right? So then we get into that type of discussion. So it's an interesting dance to go through with a lot of clients. But we start with a real quick assessment and make sure that they have the right they have the right controls in place. That's really where we need to start with.
Yeah. Now, you meet with a customer and you go through and they're not perfect, right? They don't have MFA in place. They don't have all these security measures in place. Do you recommend them to somebody? Do you have your own team that does this? Or what's the next steps after that?
Yeah, we would recommend those to companies like yourself, Paul. We would definitely engage a third-party consulting firm to engage with them to make sure that they have those proper protocols in place, to make sure that they're compliant, because most insurers would kind of put a red flag up and say, stop, we're not going to insure this company if they have a lot of broken processes in place. And I've seen that happen. I've seen it recently with companies where they just won't, they're uninsurable. And it doesn't have to do that they've been breached. If a company's been breached, a lot of insurance companies will take that under consideration because they probably have the fixes in place because they've been breached. They probably have MFA in place. They probably have backups in place. They probably have the fixes that they should have had in place before they got breached. But if they don't have the right protocols in place up front, we would engage a third-party consulting firm to get them positioned like yourselves, to make sure that they're positioned and effectively covered so that they can get the right coverage for their business.
Yeah, and you touched on a little earlier that there's so many vendor relationships that have that integrations into platform integration that there's SaaS providers, there's vendors out there. I mean, there's so many different ways for the bad guys to get in.
Right.
How do you protect against all that? I mean, it's just.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is you have to put those protocols in place, and then insurance acts as that backstop, right? Insurance acts as, in case I am breached, here's what insurance is going to do and help protect you. It covers first party breach. It covers first party and third party coverage. And first party is kind of fix my stuff, and third party is defend me in case of a lawsuit, is kind of how I like to break that down. So it covers you in a couple of different ways. And so there's a lot of different things that it will cover, and there's a lot of different things it won't cover. It doesn't cover if you don't have multi-factor authentication in place. So a lot of people will put on their application that they have MFA coverage, but then there's always the exception, right? We don't enforce it for our executives, or we don't enforce it for these people. And we've seen that happen real time. And that's where claims get denied. And that's where it gets very frustrating for customers. And we need to make sure that if they have multi-factor authentication, it's enforced across the organization, not where there's exceptions. And that's get frustrating.
Yeah, that's a great point, because we've heard that with our customers. Well, our CEO doesn't want to get, we go through these phishing campaigns, part of training. So we'll leave them off. I'm like, no, you can't do that.
You can't do that. Right. Yeah, you got to, it's got to be enforced across the board for everybody. And, or we had that intern from 2 years ago that we didn't turn access off for. Well, that's a hole that we've got to plug that hole. We've got to make sure that everybody has access or doesn't have access, or, there's a lot of different things. So, it gets pretty tough. And that's where we have to rely on consulting firms like you to come in and help backstop that type of work for us.
What would you say is the number one or the number few reasons why you would deny a claim? What do you see the most popular things customers get wrong?
It really comes down to the application. And again, having your MSP or your VAR or your consulting firm or whomever is helping with the application, making sure those checks and balances are done properly, because what you put on that application is what the insurance company is going to go with when a claim happens. So if you put on there that you have MFA across the board and you don't, or you put on there that you have a patch management strategy and you don't, or you put on there that your backups are done accordingly and you test them every quarter, whatever your backup and disaster recovery strategy is, and you're not doing that, that's where the claims get denied. And that's where the frustration sets in for people when they do have a claim. So it goes back to the application. It doesn't necessarily go back to your strategy. Your strategy could be bulletproof, but whatever you put on that application is what the insurance company is going to go off of, because that's what they have. And then the other piece is, shadow IT, right? And that's a big issue, because we see people deploy something that they didn't know about when they did the application last year. Well, that's a new app that we didn't know somebody downloaded, and we have a gap there. So
100%.
That's a big one.
And that's still going on today.
Yeah,
you would think shadow IT wouldn't exist. And I can understand in small organizations sometimes, but in larger organizations, there's got to be some controls.
There has to be. Yeah. And that's just that becomes a risk management issue that we talk to the business side about, right? And that's where this becomes the business conversation, where it's not only the IT conversation, but it's also the business conversation.
Yeah. I mean, on a percentage basis, I don't know if you can tell me this, but on a percentage basis, how many claims are denied, do you think?
There are some statistics to that. And I've heard upwards, of 40% of them get denied, and it could be for a whole variety of reasons. There could be higher statistics. These statistics change kind of almost daily. But I've heard that many get declined. And a lot of it is because of the controls that we put on the application that don't match the reality. And that's where it becomes a real bummer for customers, and it becomes very frustrating.
Yeah.
And it's just, you know, what we put on the app is what isn't reflected in reality.
Yeah, it's not necessarily the insurance companies trying to play bad guy and say we're not paying that claim, like you hear about in the healthcare, right? But it's a matter of you signed up for this, you didn't do it, so we're not going to pay.
Right, exactly, and that's where it gets tough for people. Exactly right. Yeah.
So now, would it be a conflict? Because my mind's turning now, right? So I'm on the IT side, you're on the insurance side. Are there financial relationships between a VAR, you know, a reseller, a security company like ours, and a company like yours, or would that be a conflict of interest in your mind?
No, there are partnerships, and we have them. There can't be any, from a Department of Insurance regulation perspective, there can't be any monies transferred. There's just some rules there. But there are partnerships that we have set up where we can partner with firms like yours, where we can refer business back and forth. Yeah. It's really more of a gentleman's agreement, quite candidly, and that's okay. And I think that works out well. We've got them established, and that works out really well with customers, where we can turn and say, hey, let's engage company X for a security assessment, a deeper dive security assessment, and we do those all the time.
Yeah, and I got to think that if you're familiar with these security companies, it gives you that sense of confidence, like, okay, these guys are going to get it done right.
Exactly right.
Yeah,
and the customer likes that because they know they have that, and the insurance firms even have some of that on their side. You're seeing some of there's companies that are kind of tech leaning that are insurance providers, and they have partnerships with some of the more advanced companies in the marketplace, where they're leveraging them in the marketplace for different services as well. So even the insurance companies themselves, the insurers, the insurance providers, are leveraging different companies in the marketplace. So there's kind of a blurring of the lines between the insure techs and the insurance providers and some of the technology companies. It's pretty interesting what's happening in the marketplace. Yeah.
So I'm assuming you're an agent, correct?
Correct. Right.
So
correct.
You don't do the underwriting. You none of that stuff.
No. I would leverage companies like Chubb or the Hartford or Travelers or Coalition or Cowbell or some of the other companies to provide the policy. Correct.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure.
Right.
So, going forward, John, I mean, where do you see the future in cybersecurity insurance? With the industry changing so fast, if you had a crystal ball, what do you see down the road?
AI is really changing a lot of what we're seeing.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, it's changing it from the good and the bad. We're seeing it from an underwriting perspective. They're leveraging AI technologies to make underwriting faster and cleaner and quicker.
Yep.
Turnaround times. We're seeing it from, I mentioned it, AI from an attack vector perspective with DDoS attacks coming at scale. I mean, you're probably seeing these more than I am. We're seeing it from phishing and smishing and all these different technologies that are happening. And then we're seeing it from the technology that's kind of preventing these attacks as well. So we're seeing a lot of AI helping and hurting from a guardrail perspective. We're seeing a lot of AI technologies in the space. We're seeing a lot of people. The market from a cyber insurance perspective is softening. So the costs are coming down. A few years ago, it was pretty expensive to get it. It was hard to get.
Yeah, it was kind of an unknown at that point, right? It was,
right.
It was so new to everybody. No one knew what to charge, right?
They didn't. And so a lot of companies, the costs are coming down. It's a lot more attractive for smaller and mid-sized businesses to get the insurance they need, maybe higher levels of insurance or levels of liability they're able to get. so they could get more protection at a more cost-effective rate, which is great for them because they can protect their business a little bit better. So we're seeing a lot of that type of stuff as well. So it's a really interesting time right now in the marketplace, and it's a pretty fun time to be in the space, to be honest with you. It's pretty cool.
Well, I mean, everyone needs it. I mean, so it's not a matter of, I mean, maybe somewhere down the road companies won't need it. I don't see it happening in my lifetime, but
it's becoming a core tenet. People need general liability. They need commercial auto. They need workers' comp. It's becoming a core tenet for a lot of companies to just have a cyber liability policy in place, just as part of their standard risk management strategy. It's becoming more and more common.
You got me thinking about, I'm going through my mind some incidents with some of our customers. It was cybersecurity. It wasn't an issue until it became an issue, right?
Yeah,
you see it all the time. We get the call like, we got hit.
It happened. Yeah, it happened. Yeah, and it's I mean, I just read this morning that Red Hat just got hit. So it happens. If it happens to them, it can happen to us, right? It can happen to
100%
our businesses, and it's not to be scary or alarmist or anything like that. That's not the intent, but it's just we just need to make sure we're aware of that type of stuff.
Yeah, it's I don't know how. It's a necessary evil, I guess. I mean, it is. You hate to say it that way, but it really is.
Yeah, and like I said, insurance protects you and provides that backstop. So it's important to have that, I think, from a business perspective, from a strategy perspective. So it's amazing.
Very good. No, this was great, John. I really it was nice to talk to you. I know our company is working to try to formulate some relationships with guys like you, and
love it.
We probably should. Our company should probably talk, because I think it sounds like we're rowing in the same direction for sure. Yeah,
it's great, and it's again, whether you're a small business or a mid-size or a mid-market company, it's a relevant conversation to have with your IT team and your business teams, and get everybody aligned and get everybody in the same room. And I think that's kind of a key tenet that's missed a lot, is making sure that the IT team and the risk team, if they're separate, get them in the same room, because a lot of times they don't talk together.
Yeah, that's a great point, John. Like, the business people don't talk to the IT people, right?
No, they don't.
They just yeah.
And there's a disconnect. There's a disconnect that happens, and they start pointing fingers, and when a claim happens, it becomes a big mess, and I've seen it happen, and it's unfortunate. And that's the wrong time when those teams should be talking. They should be talking before that happens. So
100%.
Bringing that clarity together is important on the front end.
I know one of the things we see, sometimes we meet with customers, and they want a DR plan put in place, and we say to them, what's your RPO and RTO, which is recovery time objective and recovery point objective for the people that are in IT. And they sometimes look at us and go, we don't know.
Right.
Right. And that's got to come from the business side of the house. That's not a technology decision.
Nope. No. And we'll ask that question. If a breach happens, who makes that call? Who do you call first? And a lot of times, I just call the IT guy. Well, maybe that's the wrong person to call. Maybe it's the this person. Maybe it's your CFO. Maybe it's your risk manager. Maybe it's the insurance. You call the insurance firm to get that kicked off, right? I mean, let's make sure we have that right protocol and command going. And when you have the RTO and RPO set properly, you have to have that as well. So that's a great point.
Yeah. How long can you be out of business? That's the name of the game.
And the average breach is a long time these days. It's hundreds of days, right?
Yeah.
It could be. Downtime is. I read a study the other day that downtime costs $8,000 per hour.
Yeah,
that's. I mean, what business can be down for $8,000 per hour when it comes to a cyber breach? And
think about a company like Amazon. Let's go to the extremes, right? Think about a company like Amazon. If they were down for a day, how many millions and billions they would be out of?
Right. And you take that down to a manufacturing company in Houston or Dallas or wherever, and they're down for $8,000 per day. I mean, how many days can they be, per hour? I mean, how many days can they be out of pocket? I mean, that's
out of business.
That's massive. And if that's not covered in your cyber insurance policy, I always tell people when they look at their insurance policies, whether it's on their core business or cyber in business, look at your exclusions. Your exclusions tell you a lot, even on your homeowner policy.
Yep.
Look at your exclusions. That tells you a lot of what's included and what's excluded from your business. If you don't have business income or business interruption insurance on your cyber policy, you need to make sure that's covered, because that will cover you if your operations go down. Yeah. That's a common miss on a lot of policies. And, that would cover you if you do go down from a cyber attack.
Yeah, that's great advice, by the way. Thanks for sharing that. But hey, before we end, John, I want to give a shout out to Mike Von Epper, who actually introduced us. Mike works with us at Prescriptive, the old dog, and he's down in Houston. And he sent me a text a few weeks ago and said, "Man, you got to get this guy on your show." And that's kind of how I reached out to you.
Yeah, I've known Mike, I don't know, for 100 years. I don't know if that's dating myself, but Mike's a great guy.
One of the best.
He's great, and I love him dearly. And it was great that he reached out to both of us and got us connected. So
great.
Very grateful for the opportunity. So thank you for that, Mike.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. I'll let Mike know we gave him a shout out. And
that's awesome.
But yeah, thank you. And like I said, I think we should talk after this. Get our companies together.
Absolutely. We need to do that for sure. Yeah.
Well, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, John, how would they do that?
Yeah, the best way to do that is you can email me at john@cybersecure.insure. So it's cybersecure.insure, INSURE, or go to my website, cybersecure.insure, INSURE. That's the best way to track me down. And I'd love to have a conversation and help any of your clients or your partners or any of your businesses out and have a conversation with them. That'd be a great opportunity. Thanks for allowing me to do that.
Oh, you're very welcome. This is a fun conversation because it's right up. I have different guests on my show. Sometimes I know nothing about what they do, so it's hard for me, but I do know a little bit about what you do. So it was kind of fun for me to kind of engage. So thank you.
This is awesome. I love it. Thank you very much for the opportunity. This is great. I'm very grateful. Thank you.
All right. Well, on that note, we'll call it an episode here. My name's Paul Delegro, your host, signing off for another edition of Business Brains and the Bottom Line Podcast.